Welcome to Taxidermy Truths, where we discuss the ins and outs of not only the taxidermy process, but the influences on the hunting community as a whole. With over 25 years in the wildlife and taxidermy industry, I host open conversations with artists, experts, and industry giants. From sustainable utilization to shipping rates, we dig into the reality of the experience after the safari and hear real stories worth remembering. Hi there, my name is Douglas Cocroft and welcome to another episode of Taxidermy Truths. Thanks for joining me. As a taxidermist, in order to create beautiful, anatomically correct, memorable trophies, the taxidermy artist needs to understand his subject or her subject. And quite often, this exposure to wildlife and the experience that a taxidermy has comes from taxidermists being hunters themselves. Knowing what a kudu is going to do in that moment where it picks up a sound and the way the ears move, the way two nyala engage in a fight, the way an animal flees and moves, all of that comes into play in creating artistry that is unique and anatomically correct and accurate. So whether your purpose as a hunter is to hunt for meat or to hunt for trophies and collections, or, as is my case as a taxidermist, I hunt for canvas to do beautiful artwork and to learn about the species so that I can portray these animals in a much better way, out of respect for the animal. Because as hunters, taxidermists, wildlife lovers, we respect the wildlife. And that's why we look after it so much. So today I'm going to move slightly away from the taxidermy truths and chat to you a bit about a few points that have helped me over the years to become a better hunter, a more responsible, ethical hunter. I was reminded of this recently whilst doing a dedicated hunter's course, and I liked the way it was summarized. There are the S's in hunting, much like a code that you can keep in the back of your mind and just consider it as a hunter, whether it's when teaching a new upcoming hunter, putting someone onto their first animal, exposing someone to hunting for the first time. These S's in hunting are a really good cheat sheet for becoming a more skilled hunter or huntress. So let's dive into it. Number one, sight. So a lot of what I'm going to discuss revolves around the senses we have and the senses of the animals. Keeping in mind, when you go hunting, you're hunting in the wildlife's environment. Animals have honed their ability to survive. Their senses are heightened. They see better, hear better, smell better, move faster. In fair chase hunting, responsible hunting, we need to outthink the prey as the predator. And we've got our work cut out for us because animals, when hunted responsibly and ethically, I would say are a lot cleverer than we are. So where sight is concerned, be vigilant. Look around. Quite often, an animal will see movement before we see the animal. And if that happens, they're gone. So be vigilant. Sight. Look around. Make sure that you're constantly moving your eyes through the field for signs of movement, signs of tracks, change in environment. Sight is very important. The second S, scent, the smell. How do we smell to an animal? Now, anyone who's hunted a waterbuck will know that musky smell when a waterbuck is spooked. But consider for a second, how do we smell to an animal?
Okay.
In order to hunt with scent in mind, the elements play a big role. Where's the wind coming from? What is the lay of the land, and how does that lay of the land affect the wind movement? And will the wind pick up our scent and deliver this silent but very, very disruptive message to the animal? So scent is the second S. Sight being first, scent being second. What are they smelling? And if you get the wind just right, what are you smelling? What lies ahead? You can often pick up a change in scent in the wind, whether it's a dung heap or a musky fragrance in the air. How does scent affect your hunt? Number 3, I mentioned the kudu's big ears, the satellite dishes of ears of a kudu that are constantly moving. A rhinoceros. When a rhino moves, their eyesight isn't great, but they have the most incredible hearing. So many animals rely on that hearing and have these constant monitors moving whilst grazing, resting, or moving through that felt environment. Again, your sound is carried and magnified on the wind. Consider the topography. Again, consider where the wind is coming from. Consider what that animal hears. Is it a sound that an animal is used to hearing and it may not create alarm bells to the animal? Or is it a sound like metal on metal that is completely out of place? It might seem very subtle to you, but to an animal that has been honed to survive, that sound is an alarm bell. And their reaction time is so much faster than ours. So consider sound. Consider the way you walk. Consider where the wind is. Look at the ground. Is the grass dry? Is it going to crunch? Are you walking on stones? Is it a wet, marshy area that as you pull your foot out, it gives that unplugging sound? All of these might be very different to what that animal is expecting to hear. And that gives them the upper hand. Number 4, shapes. This is very interesting. I've been on many hunts with an international client, and you have these trackers and skinners that accompany us on the hunt, these valuable men of the bush. And they spot animals on a hillside like that. I've looked at them in awe and said, how did you see that? We're driving along and they'll suddenly say, stop, look over there in the distance. And miles away on the side of a hill in the bush, they'll say, there's a kudu's head sticking out. It's unbelievable. It's a talent. But there's a trick. Shapes play a role. The shape of the animal against that background, against that environment, that shape is out of place. So a valuable S is to consider the shapes in that natural environment. What is the shape of the animal you're hunting? So before going out to hunt a sable, by looking at images of a sable, you familiarize yourself with the shape of the horns. You can picture the size of the animal and therefore create a mental image of the shape of this animal that you might recognize whilst out hunting. Shapes are very important. Again, from the animal's perspective, what do they see of us when we are walking against a bush? Are we in the shade? And is our shape visible? Very important to consider. Your movements create shape for the animal. The animal's movement creates a shape for us. Let's move on to the sun. Now, the sun can either be an absolute asset, or it can kill your hunt and stop it in its tracks. Hunting as the sun is setting, while you still have that strong sun, if the wind is right, because we're considering the sight, the scent, and the sound, all affected by wind, all affected by environment. If the sun is right, and it's behind me as the hunter, the wind is coming into my face so the animal can't smell me, the animal can't hear me. With that sun coming into the animal's face, chances are the animal's sight will be blurred when seeing movement and shape in the bush. So you can see they're all tied together, these S's. And it creates a really special picture, and one that's easy to work with and understand. Using the sun behind you into the animal's eyes gives you that advantage of being able to blend your shape into shadows and the environment whilst getting close enough to hunt responsibly. I've just mentioned the shadows. So moving from one shadowed point to another shadowed point presents challenges because it's in those open spaces that the animal picks up the movement. But if you are able to keep in a line of shadows, your wind is right, your topography is right, and you watch the animal, you watch their mood, the way they move, their temperament. Moving in the shadows means you can get closer and create a more confident environment for yourself as the hunter to hunt and kill ethically, cleanly, which is our goal. Silhouettes, the second last S. I love silhouettes. This is something that's special for me. Whilst glassing, I often watch the horizons, and to see kudu bulls crossing over a horizon with the blue sky in the back, the shape of those twisted spiraled horns, it's majestic. It's a very special vision for me. Imagine how quickly an animal will see your silhouette standing next to a waterhole, the reflection. On a horizon, the reflection. If you are hunting above an animal and hunting down, you've got to consider the wind. You've got to consider the temperature. Now you've got to consider the fact that the animal looking up has your silhouette against the skyline. And like I've said a few times, these animals are wired to survive. They run through the S's like this. So in order to compete in that environment, we need to become familiar, and it must become second nature to think through these basic steps. The last point, the last S, is slow. Move slowly. Don't rush. Hunting is a wonderful pastime that brings you close to nature. It exposes you to the sounds, the sights, the smells, the silhouettes, the sunsets and sunrises. Enjoy it. That's why you're out there. You're not just out there because you want to kill things. This is what a lot of the anti-hunting movement believes, that it's just about killing an animal. It's not. It's the journey. It's the appreciation. It's the respect. So move slowly. Take your time. Enjoy the moment. I can remember a few shots in my career, but I can remember many, many beautiful moments whilst on the journey to hunt that animal. Those are the S's. I'm going to read them off one last time. sight, scent, sound. The senses. Shapes, sun, shadows. Your environment. Silhouettes and slow down. Silhouettes because they're beautiful and it's often overlooked. And for me, one of the most important, slow down. Enjoy the hunt, enjoy nature. Whether it's for meat, as a collector, as an art form. It's a privilege. Hunting matters, it adds value, and it saves our wildlife. This is what has kept Africa's wildlife growing and flourishing for many, many years. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you for your time. I hope that this does help somewhere along the line. And whilst out there, you take a moment to reflect, enjoy the hunting, and share your stories. Thank you for watching.